Welcome to the Beauties and Beasties podcast with Alex and Sean.
Hello, hello, hello. How are we all doing, guys?
Yeah, kicking along.
For those who are listening in this week, it's a triple threat. We have it's the first angry face. Stefan, what have we done? What have we done to upset you? That's not a happy face. It's not a smiley face. Why are you?
Who
Why are
put
you
the
giving
angry
us the
face
sad
on?
face? The angry
Stephen
face.
Scene.
What
You
have we
clicked the
done?
wrong button, Stephen. After I said nice things about you as well, Mr. Seany.
Yeah, clearly, we've got beef. Do we finally have beef? Have we got to a point where we're big enough for beef now?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But there we go. So yes, for those listening, it's a bit of a triple threat tonight because unfortunately, so far, our special guest is yet to arrive. So we'll see what happens. But before that, I think we'll do a fairly good job of having a bit of a catch up and a natter. Sean, how you doing, mate?
Fucking shattered. I'm done. Yeah.
I've got a challenge for everybody. What time is 2:45 EST? Is that quarter to 8 or quarter? We're GMT. Scott's EST. So 2:45 EST. Is that quarter to 7 or quarter to 8?
7:45.
It's going to be 45 minutes late.
Oh my God. Well, that's what daylight saving time does to you, isn't it? Screws everyone up.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. We're going to get him for 15 minutes. Brilliant.
When have we ever been on time? When have we ever been on time? It'll all be
How was your week going, guys?
Well, I think Hugh, you can start with this one.
Yes, it's been ticking along. It's a little bit quieter for us this week. The wasp nests are definitely down, which actually isn't such a bad thing, really, because I think if we had as many as we were having last year, we'd have a job to keep up with it. So we've been ticking along okay, really, on the whole, keeping up with the routines as well as the jobs coming in. Rat jobs are down a little bit. Bed bug job done. And another roach job just started. So it's ticking along okay. Can't complain, really.
Awesome. So yeah, that kind of brings on an interesting subject. And actually, Hugh, I might get you with your skills and powers of I know. To put the link, just to have a bit of audience participation. If you can put the link to the StreamYard in the chats, because I think actually we were just discussing this off air, but it makes a very good point, and you kind of both have touched on this in a little bit, which is cash flow in small businesses. What does it mean? Because people usually look at the bottom line, don't they? The amount of money you make each year, how much you're paying in corporation tax, is that a measure of how successful you are? But I know fully well from my days in the consultancy that you can put some big ticket items in there, and it means absolutely particularly boo, unless you've got that money coming in. Until it lands in your account, it's all very metaphorical, isn't it? And Hugh, you say you've got 4 mouths to feed within your company.
Yeah,
and you're having a couple of slow weeks. Sean, you were just saying that you've got another 2 boys to feed, but you've got some big ticket items coming up, but they are spread over a significant period of time. So, I mean, how do you guys cope with it? Because I've left that world, that I was in ever so briefly now, but I remember it being a struggle.
quite a crushing month this month because we've got our corporation tax and our VAT due. Double whammy. So we have to have as much in the bank now as we have to have for the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Or have it at least put back.
So let me ask you a question, because when I was managing the accounts for Wade Environmental, every invoice I had come in fastidiously, there was a button I could press on my internet banking app or my phone that said split this bill, and I would make sure that every time a bill came in, with whether or not it was £10, £100, £1,000, £10,000, whatever it was, I would click split this bill, and I created 4 pots: one for corporation tax, one for VAT, one for my wages, and another for Ellen's wages. And without fail, every time I split every bill up into those in the amount that you needed. So at the end of the year, I had a pot for VAT, or the end of the quarter, I had a pot for VAT, and at the end of the year, I had a pot for corporation tax. So I was never caught short, but it always meant that I had a lump of money that I could never touch. Never touch. I mean, I don't know if that's the right way of doing it, but it took the stress out of it.
I do that. So I have it set up where 20% of any bill that is paid to me automatically goes into what I call my VAT pot. And that is usually enough to cover my VAT and my corporation tax when it comes up. I used to think that I would, once I'd paid my VAT bill, I would think, oh, great. Whatever's left over is can go back into the business. But then I always worry that one day I won't have that money, so I always leave it in that pot in case, because I find it difficult to budget. But the one thing I would say is when you start doing that, you realize what goes into that pot. It's very easy to understand why people can get behind if they're not doing that, because the money that you put away quickly to pay your VAT bill is quite considerable, isn't it? So yeah, VAT, and then, but if you don't have it, you learn to cope without it as well, I think. So if you do it all the time, you just look at your your current account, and because it's gone before it's even hit your current account, you sort of know what you're doing. And then if we get big bills paid, I'll immediately take some money and I put them in like a winter wages pot for the lads and for the secretary. And I know that I want a particular amount of money in that pot before the summer's out. And then I just try to keep paying their wages out of their current account throughout the winter. So eventually I hope I get to a point where I've got enough in there where I don't have to worry about ever, Bill Gates said it, didn't he? He said that early on he always used to worry that he wouldn't have the money. What's that Belen doing?
You've got somebody looking at you, a bird.
Yeah, well, so changing the subject altogether, Dale's come on here, fucking bellend.
Well, let's bring him on, and you can call him a bellend in real time.
Yeah.
So, Sean, would you like to introduce our next guest for us?
This is Dale. That's his bird. That is, he's doing very well with his bird. We are going to hopefully start doing something with it at the start of next year. Had a look at a couple of jobs that we could take on rather than subcontract out. I can absolutely 100% understand why lads become totally and utterly fixated on birds. Being around it, it is absolutely awesome to watch. Had it on the field with them a couple of times and stuff like that. But yeah, looks pretty content, doesn't it? Is that a cool bird, boys?
So Dale, you're going to say hello to us all? You're going to introduce us?
Hello?
Silence.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I don't know what I was doing. I just clicked on a link.
Click on the link and found yourself on the podcast. That is dangerous. Well, if anyone else...
Good job you went in the toilet then.
It is the epitome of the big red button, isn't it? Don't press this button. What'll happen? Just don't press it. But there we go. For anyone else, we're just going to spend the next sort of like half an hour or
I'll
so
leave
just
you in peace.
discussing
I didn't know what I was doing. Have a nice night.
current topics.
Have a nice night.
Oh, God. So yeah, cash flow is a really interesting one, isn't it? Because it's in my opinion, that's what is going to be what kills more small businesses. Because exactly as you said, Hugh, I mean, I'm not going to ask you for numbers, but if you were to have not put money aside for your corporation tax or for your VAT bill this quarter, and you were suddenly asked to pull that out of the air.
Well, I've got a. So what I do is I do a spreadsheet. So then I know each month how much needs to be in the bank by that stage. So that because we have an
do you just have one great big lump sum in your bank?
No, I do the same as you, but it's also quite difficult to split them all up. So I know that I shan't say. It just helps me look at it. I just add them all up together, all the different bank accounts, and I can look at it and think, yeah, that's how much I need in the bank at that stage. Because the thing is, because our end of year for the business for corporation tax is the end of September, it doesn't run with the financial year either.
See, I try to get mine to overlap with the end of my financial year was December, so it kind of.
But this is the thing, though, isn't it? And this is for anybody who's thinking of growing. I can remember Sean Taylor said it, didn't he? The shit people don't see. This is the stuff that takes your time to sit down and run that business, work on your business, not in your business. And it's very difficult to do both. So if you're going to employ people, you have to understand that all of a sudden there is a lot more work comes than just simply farming out the work to them. You've got to, and don't get us wrong, I'm not very good at it. So please don't think I'm preaching at you. I'm fucking not, but try hard. But if you are going to go into it, this is the type of stuff that you have to get your head around, budgeting. And I can tell you an interesting story, actually. When I first took Ellis on, there was a couple of times where I had his wages in the bank and I paid him and my account was at zero, and all of a sudden shit got real very quickly, and it was like, ooh. And I think that happened twice. And then I made a vow that would never, ever, ever happen again. So I put a month's worth of wages in a pot. And then I started. But it's taken, I don't know, 4 years to get to where we are. And we are probably about 50% of the way, like financially in the bank that I would like to be, I would think. Where I could almost think that the pressure was off, like that. But
see, this is one that's it's always trying to get my head around, and I always struggled with it. Which is, number one, you want to leave yourself a buffer in the bank because that makes sense, doesn't it? That's your panic button. That's I've got a bit of a slow month, like Hugh just said there. A bit of a slow week. That's going to bring cash flow down. But the issue I found with that is because in the second year I started to do that, and my corporation tax bill went through the roof, absolutely through the roof, because suddenly you are retaining, that's not a buffer in the eyes of HMRC. That's profit, less their cotton socks.
The other thing that gets really difficult is when you pay yourself dividends.
Yes.
Because you can't pay dividends. Although the money's in the bank, you pay yourself a dividend. You can't always pay yourself what's in the bank because you can't pay yourself more dividend than you've got profit from the previous year. So So 1 year I actually paid more dividends than I was physically supposed to do. And when I went to the accountant and said, "You let me pay those dividends," he said, "That's not my job to tell you how many dividends you should pay." And I'm like, he's no longer with us. And I just realized something, actually. I was told off for having a false background with a pineapple on my shoulder, because apparently if you have a pineapple, you're a swinger. And now I'm just
Yeah.
looking at the background, and I realise I've got a rather phallic-looking cactus behind me.
Yeah.
Which I shall move out the way. That's better.
Oh yeah. I'm going to give one of my customers some free
Pineapples.
some free advertising. I'm going to read out the message to you because you'll absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying, don't you? Don't
Yeah,
you?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Let me have a look.
I was quite. They are very artistic, I must admit.
Oh, you're gonna have to read that. We're not going to be able
to
to see that at all.
Yeah. Can I get your name, address, email address? I'll get you booked in. 9:30 onwards is great. His name, his address, then his email address. punchpussytoys@hotmail.com. I won't be in, but blah blah blah. To which I replied, "Love the email," and he replied, "Ha ha 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 ha. You should see the website." I sent it to the boys, and both of them were fighting over who was going to go to do this wasp nest. They were actually arguing over who was going to go and do the website. But if you do want to see the website, it is actually punchpussytoys.co.uk.
How have we got here? We were having a
Very.
conversation about accounts and cash flow. How have we ended up here? This is strange.
Well, a bit of free advertisement from, isn't it?
Oh, it's from a background.
It's
Another
for a
helpful
background.
hint and tip from me. This here
Okay.
cost about, well, it cost, I don't mind telling you, I think it's £7,400. That's the
That's
box.
one way
that
of getting
does
rid of your profit.
exactly. It didn't. If you are a business and you are not looking at grant funding, look at grant funding. That was 100% grant funded.
Okay.
I didn't pay for it. And we've been looking at grants quite a bit at the minute. If anybody wants to have a look, there's one across the country, and it is for going carbon neutral. And you can claim up to £2,000 to help your business go carbon neutral. I've asked if I can put an office pod in my garden with it, because it'll stop us having to drive forward and backwards to the office every day. And the response I got was they've never had that before, but they are looking for reasons to say yes rather than no. So I might be able to get an office in me garden rather than my house, which would be perfect for me and genuinely would cut down on fumes, etc. So we've done quite a bit with grants, and once you've got one grant, you tend to find that they start sending you emails, or we find that they send emails about others. So what is it like? I don't know how much work would we have to do in order to bring in £7,500 like that we could spend on something, probably in excess of 20. So that there is worth 20 grand's worth of work to us. Make sure you are not missing out on stuff. It takes a while to sit down and write your proposals, but when you look at it financially, it is worth every second and every bit of your effort. Contact your local business people, and that will help your cash flow. Boom.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal. I mean, Hugh, you got your containers from a rural outreach grant, didn't you?
50% of it, yeah.
When we were setting up IPM Central, we were looking at and we still might a seed grant, which is where you can get private investors to match your investment into a project. So that was to try and build some training centres here. Then
you do need to spend quite a bit to bring your corporation tax down. I think somebody might know the figure. I think you need to spend approximately 20,000 to reduce your corporation tax by 2,000. I think that was the figure I was given from the accountant. So that's
corporation tax is 19%, isn't it? Or at least mine was. So yes, for every £1,000 profit you make, you're spending £200 in tax. So you need to spend that £1,000 in order to reclaim that £200 mathematically. It's you have to spend a lot to save a little.
Can you remember being on your own as a one-man band making wages? Both years.
Yeah.
Did you find it easier or harder or the same as you are now when you start to pay wages?
How do you mean?
Just like the finances of it, because I thought like now, I think it would be incredibly easy to go back to being sort of a one-man band. But it would be very difficult to run a business as a one-man band. Like you struggle in other ways, don't you?
I was never a one-man band. I incorporated as a limited company from day zero.
Yeah, but there was a time when it was just you as WE in the labs, wasn't there? Or not?
Technically, me and my dad as a director.
It was easier for sure, wasn't it? Because you could just look at the money in the bank as a sole trader and think, that's my money. I want to take all that money out. That's my money. Whereas as soon as you incorporate, it's not your money anymore. It's the business's money.
Yeah.
And you can't just think, well, there's 25 grand in the bank. That's my money. I want to pull that out. It's not your money. Not only do you then have to pay PAYE on it, but you've got to pay corporation tax if the company does well. So that then you get the director's account, and it all gets a lot more confusing. Wildly so. And of course, there was quite a benefit in being incorporated at one stage, because when you paid yourself dividends, you had £10,000 a year in dividends tax free, which they then successive governments have reduced and 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 reduced. And in a minute, you won't get, I think is it 2,000 you get tax free now, which will end up as zero under the latest government.
I have swapped this stress out, but no, let's put a pin in this, because we're not here today to all talk about accounts. One thing I do want to touch on there, if you don't mind me changing tack ever so slightly, the latest issue of
we're filling.
We are filling. So anyone who's tuned in a bit late, we are doing a bit of a pad. We are doing a bit of a filler, mostly because
I've got a brilliant. I'm going to say I've got a brilliant.
Angie's here, and Scott.
Oh, and Angie's got a
lovely.
Literally, just as you said, we were doing some padding. Let's invite them to the stage. Hey guys, how you doing? Sorry for the confusion. I believe when you guys said you were turning up at a certain time, nobody, you, I, or otherwise, particularly accounted for the fact that we have daylight savings hours, which puts us an hour before you. So we've been on chatting away for just a little bit. So apologies for throwing you into the deep end. But hello, welcome to the podcast. How are you both doing?
Oh, great. We're used to being thrown into the deep end, so it's nothing new.
I shall disappear because it gets confusing with 4 people.
5 people now.
5. So thank you very much, Scott and Angie, for turning up, and I shall disappear for now. Otherwise, it gets all very, confusing. Take care. Cheers, guys. We move.
So Angie, Scott, how are you doing? Welcome to the podcast. I'm Les.
Bye.
That's Sean. For those who are listening in at the moment, and we are a predominantly UK-based podcast here, explain to us, please, just a little bit about the pair of you. Where are you from?
So we live right outside of Washington, D.C. in the United States. We've been married for working on 9 years now. We own and operate a biological pest control company that we use specially trained dogs to do 2 different things. We have one set of dogs that we use to detect, remove, and harass rats off of properties. And we have a different set of dogs that we use to detect mice. They don't remove them, but they'll detect the mice on all different kinds of properties. We've been doing this for about 8 years now. We have 7 full-time employees, and then Angie and I both work quite a bit. We keep very busy, and we have an incredible time. We love what we do. We have a big passion for it. Being in Washington, D.C., we get a chance to really get involved in a lot of the unique buildings and the policy makers, the different environments that are there. We travel up and down the east coast of the United States. We have a mobile home. So what we do is we hook up our car to the back of our mobile home. We load in our motorcycle, our dogs, our life, and we just hit the road for usually several weeks at a time. And we go up to the Boston, Massachusetts area. We go up there, we'll spend a couple of weeks up there. Our employees are fantastic. They handle the DC area, and we just go on the road and have some adventures.
Oh, that sounds absolutely incredible. So before we get into the nitty gritty, and Sean is a big dog fan, so he will have 100 questions for you around the work stuff. But before we get into the nitty gritty of the work, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourselves? How did you find yourself in pest management? How did it all begin? Because it's a fairly unique industry that we find ourselves in, and people are either by design or by accident. So how did you find yourself doing pest management?
I had a very mean ex-wife that required child support, so I got laid off my job, and they said, go forth and make money. So I went forth and made money, and I got into pest control. My background is actually computer science. I was in sales and director of sales for an internet security company until the downturn in 2008, and that's how I got into this.
Okay, wow.
I worked in the school system in Virginia, and then I didn't like how things were going, so then I was just looking for a new job, and a friend of a friend asked if I wanted to work with dogs that sniffed out bed bugs, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty neat. So I tried into that. Little did I know that it was still considered pest control. And then I just got into the whole pest control industry from there, and I'm glad I did
it. It is a wonderful little industry, isn't it? That when you find yourself in it, you're either in it for 5 minutes or for life. There doesn't seem to be any other option. You're either a lifer, or you quickly decide that fleas, bedbugs, and ticks are not the animals I wish to have as playmates anymore, and to do away. So did you guys meet on the job, or did you know yourself, know each other beforehand, or?
We did. We met on the job. Her boyfriend, her then boyfriend's roommate, was my business partner. So she came on board, and then he didn't like being self-employed. He found out how hard of a work it is. So she stepped up to the plate, and we just went from there. So she went from being an employee to now she owns the company, because it's a woman minority-owned company. So I work for her. So she is my boss.
Ooh,
yeah, I know.
We were. You may have just missed just before you guys came on. I don't know how much you heard, but the little bit of filler, the little bit of paddle that we were doing beforehand, we were talking about the different perspectives in running your own business, and actually how doing the pest management, doing the pest control is one thing, and that's the thing we're comfortable with. But for a lot of people, a lot of small businesses, it's the running of the business where people tend to struggle, because they are doers as opposed to the rest of it. So the fact that you have this dynamic, it seems to really work for you guys quite well. I think quite well, it would seem.
It works really well, because I'm the mouth. I mean, I'm just an outgoing type A personality, and Angie is definitely more organized, more controlled as far as putting things together. So she runs the operations. So for us, it just worked out really well. And it's true about what you were saying about people running their business too, because we know from friends in the industry, or even just a lot of small business, they may have a passion and a talent in what their business is about, but they don't know a damn thing about running a business. They don't know insurance and invoicing and scheduling, and even car maintenance when you start to build a fleet. And it's just like, wow, there's so many things that come at you from different angles that you would just have never thought of.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? The things we were literally just, of all of the super exciting things to be discussing, we're discussing tax. We won't go back into that, because there's something much more exciting to talk about now, which is dogs. And so, how, out of all of the elements of pest management, from chemical controls to physical trapping to birds, the rest of it. How did you guys find yourself with dogs? Because it's a fairly niche part of our industry, isn't it? And as you said, Angie, you didn't even consider it pest management when you first started out, which just goes to show that the perception of it is it's so far on the periphery of pest management to a lot of people that it's almost not there. So, how did you find yourself with dogs, with doing this bit?
I've been involved with working with dogs for, I don't even know, 30 years, 40 years. And then when I got laid off, I was trying to figure out a way to make money. And so I started up with the bed bug detection business. And so that's what we were doing. And we were just absolutely booming. But a lot of people were jumping into the market. There were new pesticides that were coming on the market. We were just a one-show company. So Angie went out and was tasked with finding some other things that we could do with dogs in the pest control market. And she came back with controlling Canada geese, which are a big problem in the United States. They're all over the campuses, they're all over the golf courses. And she also came back with the ratting with the dogs. So we looked into both of them and we decided to go with the ratting, and we've never looked back. It took us about 2 years to develop a program. But since then, we've literally, without sounding any kind of braggart, we've developed an industry, and it's just absolutely taken off.
So I've got one last question, then I'm going to just pass over to Sean before his head explodes. In the UK, we have we have what we refer as traditional pest management. You know, a lot of the traditional aspects of pest management, which is using dogs, using traps, using lines, using bits and bobs like that. But almost exclusively, all of these elements of what we would call traditional pest control, which I think you guys call biological pest control, it's all done in rural settings. It's all done in farms. It's all done out in the rurals and the suburbs, and very little of it is actually done, apart from bedbug detection. Very little of it is done in urban environments. But I'm led to believe that you guys specialize in the deployment of dogs in more heavily urbanized environments. Is that true?
I'd say probably 99% of our business is urban and a little bit of suburban work. But by far all of it is urban work. So we work our dogs on top of not skyscrapers per se, because they don't really have them in Washington D.C., but 12 and 15-story buildings. Yeah, they're work off leash. We work them on the streets. They're off leash. Our dogs are specially trained. They're obedient. So we've got them where they'll chase a rat down the sidewalk and they don't go off the sidewalk. And if we tell them to stop, they stop. And we tell them to come back, they come back.
Come on, Sean, ask the question that everyone is dying to hear right now.
So my brain doesn't work like other people, so I haven't got a clue what other people want to hear, but I know what I want to hear.
We'll get along fine, Sean.
Yeah. So there's numerous things go through my head. The first thing is, what dogs you got and why? So
we have a couple of different breeds. For our ratting, we use primarily Patterdale Terriers. And we have one called a Teckle, which is a working line Dachshund. And then for our mice detection, we've included a couple of Belgian Malinois in there because we do very, very large warehouses, and we also do very, very large office buildings. And so the Malinois can really eat up some space, and then we can specialize in smaller areas with the Patterdales. Before we get away from that, well, hold on for one thing. Let me say one thing. I do want to say, based on what you were saying as far as your guys' traditional use over there, that's how we learned about this. So you guys over in the UK have a whole bunch of rat packs and ratting clubs. And I lurked on them. We lurked on them for 2 years. I asked questions. I made friends with people. That's how I became friends with Stuart Blair. And the guy...
Stuart.
So they were so wonderful. They answered questions. I love the British humor, so they pushed back on me and gave me a hard time for being on the other side of the pond. All in good spirit, though. You know what I mean? But we learned so much. They were so friendly. I had never heard of the Patterdale Terriers before until I met through the internet, but met some of the guys over there that are using them, and we just love the breed. We've actually brought some in from the UK. From one of the top English breeders. We had one of our stud dogs is from there, and oh my God, he brought
Who from?
Tom Angus from Jane and Mathers. And we
So it's
have
not my
over.
world, but I'm sure there's going to be folks listening to this who are like, I know them.
I know him. But
So, I mean, that's amazing that you it was when I refer to this as traditional pest management, the dogs, the ferrets, the long lines, and the rest of it. You actually learnt from the traditional, from the UK, from that sphere. And so I can only imagine, because there's only so much you can learn by proxy. There's only so much you can learn by asking people online. Did you come over to the UK and see it done, or did you simply just took what you knew and ran with it and basically shoehorned it into your own circumstances to create this brand new thing, which is the urban biological pest control teams? I'm going to call it that.
We did not go over. At that point, we were trying to get the business going. We didn't have two nickels to rub together, so going over to the UK was definitely out of the question. In fact, we got a hard time from people in our industry that knew of it, because what we did is we were turning away from our bed bug business and turning it towards the ratting. So we took a very, very large risk because nobody else was doing it, and everybody else that had worked with dogs said it's a bad idea. It'll never work. It's only used in a rural agricultural setting, and we felt that we could do otherwise. And fortunately, we were right. But and you bring up a tender subject there, Lex, because when we were learning through this, we didn't have anybody we could say, "Hey, are you doing this?" So I'm imaginative, shall we say? So I was trying all these different things. 90% of them didn't work, so I'd chuck them in the corner and move on to the next idea. So when I would go back to the till for more money, Angie being my boss, I need money for this. She goes, well, what else do you have in the corner of shame out there? So they eventually became our corner of shame, and we've got pictures of just all these different ideas that didn't work. All this money collecting dust.
Is the corner of shame within? Can we see the corner of shame?
We don't have right now, but we have so many pictures, and like we used street hockey sticks as our tool of trade. But before we tried those, we tried field hockey sticks, we tried tennis rackets, we tried all kinds.
Okay, I'll give you my one. So, have you ever seen blue agricultural hose before?
No.
So working in raw. So basically, blue is the same type of hose that they use for delivering water. So in agricultural plants in the UK, you'll have this blue semi-flexible hose line. So if you hold it out straight at the end of the arm, it won't sort of like droop down like this. But you can deform and you can bend it. And from my limited time out on the tools, it was very useful dispatching rats, because if you try and knock something solid down onto the floor, of course it doesn't bend. So of course there's always going to be one point of contact greater on the floor than others, and if that point of contact isn't directly on a rat, then you've got a problem. But the great thing about this agricultural waterline hose was, because it was slightly flexible, when you slapped it down on the floor, the actual area that was in contact with the floor, flat, was probably about a foot long. So you didn't need to be that accurate to be very accurate. It was a fantastic little bit. Yeah. So rather than your hockey sticks, because let's be honest, that's probably going to give people the wrong idea as you all run down the road with your hockey sticks.
I know why I use hockey sticks, because it's hard to hit it without getting pipe with a hockey stick. You've got a nice wide area at the height of the rat to give it a good wallop across the wall.
And that's exactly it, Sean. We have dogs that know how to do it. They'll grab the rat out of the air, and then as they're coming down, there you go. Stuart's saying, "Hey, last time I was cut, he gave me a hockey stick." But the dogs will just grab the rat out of the air and they just body slam it. When it hits the ground, it's dead, and they just drop it and they run.
And they
wait. So you're not using the sticks to. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm saying they know, and if you miss, especially like if we give it to somebody new, we're like, here, if the rat comes towards you, push it back to the dogs. And if it gets by them, the dogs will go and just give them a dirty look, and they keep running.
So the hockey sticks are less for dispatch and more for sort of like herding, directing the rats towards the dogs, flicking them up for a little alley-oop. But it does. There is a public perception part of this I do want to address, which is I think a lot of the reasons that we don't find the traditional methods of pest management occurring in more urban environments in the UK is there is this belief that if you were to chase a rat down the street with a pack of Patterdales in, London or Glasgow or Birmingham or something like that, it would be such a spectacle and not in a particularly positive way. You would get people then chasing you down the streets as well, and it would look like some kind of comedy sketch. So how is the public, how does the public react to you undertaking this method of pest control in the public eye, in under scrutiny, where people can watch, where you have cell phones out? I mean, how have you guys dealt with that?
Lex, you asked some very, very uncomfortable questions here, because we come back to that's what you're here for, right? Because we come back to my corner of shame there. One of the ones that I had was using axe handles with no axe head on there, because we could hit the trash cans and stuff like that. So we were working in downtown Washington, D.C. It was Angie and our dogs and myself and one of our employees. Angie was running ahead of us with the dogs, and we were behind her running after them with the axe handles. Next thing you know, the DC police pull up, like in that half circle, and their lights are on, and they're like, "Put down put down the axe handles and put your hands up." And she's a little bit further off, and a taxi cab driver had seen us chasing the squirrel down the street with axe handles, and she's running like hell
with a dog.
With a dog, because she's a lot faster than us, and they called the police. So we put the axe handles to rest. We don't use those anymore. That's when we moved on to the next idea.
I'm sorry, I'm trying so hard not to laugh, but that is ludicrous. That's incredible, and yeah. I'm sure that wasn't the only. I mean, what was that the only time, or is this a running joke? Running,
it really. We've never had a problem. So a lot of the work that we do is a little bit more undercover. We go in during the middle of the night. We do a lot of when we're doing our urban work. We do a lot of work on campuses, so we're doing a lot of work in the shrubs and the trees. Or we're doing work in the alleyways and around the trash area. So it's not per se just into the street. But anytime we have encountered the public on the street, they've always been fascinated by what we do. We get a few people that are bothered by it. And whenever we possibly can, because we are aware of the PR, the public relations part of it, we'll explain to them what we're doing it, why we're doing it. But our biggest thing really is it's reducing the need for the rodenticide, which otherwise harms the environment.
I've spent many years in the M&D community, and I've spent years working on projects to have a sustainable pest management, where there is a tool for every application, and an application, that will find all of that. So it's fantastic to see alternatives being utilized, especially traditional methods being revitalized and brought in and applied in new and novel ways. Who are
your customers then? Who are you looking at as the sweet spot on the customer front?
Everybody. I mean, we're so busy. We're booked out almost 3 months out. Our waiting list is filled, and we're just turning away. We do office buildings, schools, grocery stores, apartment buildings. We do restaurants. The list, a lot of federal work because of all the federal work.
So, like, if a grocery store gets you in, like, obviously I can understand a school because you've got quite a big area to go around they've probably got shrubs and bushes and all that, but you got a grocery store. What are they getting, like an hour's worth of your time, and kick the bins over and try and reduce the numbers that way?
There's a lot more to it than that. So we actually specially train our dogs to work in the drop ceilings. So I don't know what you guys have the same thing as you call them that in Washington, D.C., but you know how they lower the ceilings in the stores? Yeah. We train our dogs.
We call them suspended ceilings, yeah.
We call them suspended ceilings, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we've actually trained our dogs to work in the suspended ceilings. So what we do is we go up on a ladder or onto a lift. We go up to the suspended ceilings, and we put the dogs to rat in between there. We go up on top of the freezers and the coolers, and we put the dogs down. We lower them down on the line. What we'll do is we'll put a line behind their shoulders. We lower them down. They'll go do whatever they need to in between the coolers, under the coolers. Yeah. And then when they're done, they come out and they just stick their shoulders out. And we just put the harness, or the loose, I shouldn't call it a noose. We put it on the leash end around them. And they just put themselves right in, and we pull it right up. you laugh at, that they do that. We have one of them, she'll just put her head in there because she doesn't care. So we're so quick and careful and smooth with it. She just puts her head through it and she just goes limp and she just looks like she's hanging there. And we just pull her up and she's only in it for 2 or 3 seconds and take it off and she's off and gone. As crazy as these claims sound, okay,
Yeah.
they've all been proven so many times. So there's so many people that have seen it that are clients. We stopped counting and keeping track of when we were at 40,000 rats that we had removed, and that was at this point 5 years ago. I mean, so we've done every kind of environment. We've done everything from trains, planes, and automobiles. Where we have grocery stores that we've done. We do on a weekly basis. We do ones that we do once a month or once a quarter. Office buildings that we go into all the time. A lot of what we do is we get a property that has a problem with rats, and then we go in, we correct the problem, and then we have scheduled maintenance that we come back depending upon their needs to keep the rats under control.
And that is an interesting point. And I brought this up with Stuart, and I brought this up with other pest managers who focus on the more traditional aspects, shooting included, which is when we talk about control, of course, dogs, guns, Moabs, whatever you want to deploy in that situation, you can only control what you see and what is actually out and exposed at the time. So when we talk about control, you say there are some sites you have to go back to persistently. How do you guys find a way around that? I mean, having to constantly go back to site, because unless you can get to every square inch of that site, what I'm trying to ask is, what's your clearance rate like? What's your 100% control feature on this? Is there one? Is there a guarantee?
We don't provide a guarantee because it so much depends upon the property working with us, whether it's proper sanitation, whether exclusion, whether using proper pest control methods. But we have so many clients that we work with closely that do that they have 100% rat free. What we do is we'll come back on. We have a secret, like, so one of the things that we'll do is when we're going to go on a property that we know has had rat pressure, we give our dogs enough water during the day that it's safe, but we don't load them up on water. Then when we get to the property, we load them up on water. They go around, they can tell where the rats have been or rats are that they can't get to, and they just go around and they mark, very similar to any other predator, whether it be a wolf, whether it be a dog on the hydrant, or whatever the case may be. The rats come back, they recognize the pheromones that are in the urine, and they just turn around and take off, and they don't come back.
So that's so strange, because there is a product in the UK, and I'm not sure if you have it over there. It's called Silent Raw, which is someone sells. It's basically lion urine, and I don't know how they got it, and I'm pretty certain that there is some poor, entry level technician on minimum wage with a big cup on the end of a long stick, standing outside a lion cage somewhere. But you have a look at it. It's called Silent Raw, and it is exactly that. It's an exclusionary tool designed on carnivore urine. I was only asking that because it's such a wonderful sort of like concept, and it breaks the mold of traditional pest management once again, which is traditional pest management as we've seen it for the last 5, 10, 15 years, which has been heavily chemically orientated, has been you will return every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, every so many weeks, and you will topically reply. But what you guys are saying is you will come back in a more frequent basis with the dogs, and people are happy to pay for that. People are happy to engage with this because it is unique, or because it is a reduction in chemicals. It's green, for want of a better term. I mean, it seems like a fantastic model. And I suppose my next question is how many other people have copied you? Are you finding Me Too's out there? Are you finding those that have taken your success and run with it?
There's a few people that have had success, but when people, and we're very glad to work with people. We've tried to work with people in the past because, frankly, we have so much business. We're turning it away. But the thing, some people think you can just go get a Patterdale or Jack Russell or another terrier, let them loose, and you're out. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it took us 2 years to develop the program. We not only do we know about how to work the dogs, but you really need to understand rats. You need to understand their behaviors, their biologies, their feeding. You have to understand architecture. You have to understand the buildings and how they're built, what they're built of, the way that the rats can enter them and go above them, through them, underneath them. You have to understand the terminology. You have to understand the legal aspect of it. We're very, very careful as far as our forms, the terminology we use, the safety measures that we use to lower our liability risk. As you might imagine, when we first went to, Angie went to get the insurance for this. First of all, we couldn't find it at the beginning, and then we got the insurance. It was crazy money.
I can imagine that phone call with an underwriter. Yep, I want insurance for a pest management company. Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, just one small catch. I want to put a Patterdale into a suspended ceiling in a food factory.
Well, for the longest time, they didn't even have the category. The only category they had for dogs were drug dogs or bomb dogs. And we told them, we don't do that. We do not have that kind of liability. We don't have those kind of issues.
Our first policy was actually from Lloyd's of London, because they're the only one that had if you will, an exotic underwriting. And I thought it was really cool. She had to pay for it. I thought it was cool having stuff from Lloyd's of London. You always heard about that, especially being older. You always heard about them. You know what I mean? But yeah, they're the only ones that would insure us.
I love it. I've got a little. This is a bit of a tangent, but this is my little bit of let's say tidbit knowledge around Lloyd's of London and insurance companies. Have you heard of the expression? You must have done. Have heard the expression. Something that's A1 quality. A1 quality.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So actually that came from Lloyd's of London, from back in the times of when ships were frequently going between the UK and the New World at the time. There was a huge insurance liability with sending goods across that great big blue wet thing. And so what Lloyd's did is they created a classification system based on the quality of the goods that were being sent over and the quality of the ship and the ship's rigging that was taking it. So, of course, you would have the hull was rated, I think, A to F, and the rigging and the sails was rated 1 to 5. So if you wanted high quality goods sent across to the New World, you would find a ship that was A1 rated, because that's the best you could find. It had the most, secure hull and the best rigging going. And you certainly didn't pick an F5 ship, because that probably would sink somewhere around about Plymouth. Either Plymouth, pick one. So there we go. So that's Lloyd's of London did that for us. So next time you use your A1 analogy, say that you once banked with the people or insured with the people that invented it.
Oh, that's cool.
There you go. Our little tidbit for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, the longer anyone talks to me, the more people realise I have just a mind filled with this useless crap. And it comes out. Oh right, another one, a fellow purveyor of crap. I see.
I call him Scoogle.
Yeah. Oh God, here we go.
Scott Google.
Here we
Google.
go. Yeah, here we go. You think you guys, when you're hating your job and you think it's a bummer, okay, remember one thing: I got to work with my wife.
The look from hell there, the death look, the death look.
and rightfully deserved as well. There we go. So there we go. I've got 100 more questions, but I'm fully aware that I have spoken more than I've listened tonight. Absolutely. So Sean, please help me out here.
How many dogs are you running now then as a business? Are all your technicians running their own dogs? Are you just doing the dog work and they're doing other stuff? What's going on with that?
We have 23 dogs altogether. So
right.
What we do is we classify a team as one handler and up to 2 dogs. So depending upon the circumstances, we try to keep the same handlers with the same dogs, because they can look at them, they can tell if they're on point, they know how they're going to react. They just know each other. But a lot of our jobs, we work a lot. We have a lot of business. So our dogs are just wonderful dogs. So sometimes when we do those big jobs, they give it all. They can't work more than 1 or 2, 3 nights. So then we have to have some backup dogs if they're tired, or if they cut their paw. We rotate the dogs around to re-energize them so they don't get too stressed out, too tired out, and they get dumb and they do dangerous work, as far as taking risks. But all of our dogs are company owned. I'm in charge of the animal services, so I do the breeding, I do the development, I do the socialization, the obedience. We do the training. We don't start using our dogs until they're a year old. For the first year, we just let them be dogs. We just try to give them as many experiences as we possibly can. We joke and we say that we don't like unruly kids and dogs. So we put a lot of socialization into the dogs so they're not doing excessive barking, jumping up. We don't allow them to ever put their teeth on anybody, even in play, those kind of things. So when they step out, that they're well mannered.
Right. And how long? And from picking them up at 12 months to getting them out, are you sort of training on the job as well as training, if that makes sense?
Yeah, what we do is we normally start at about 9 months. What we'll do is we'll bring them out on jobs and we'll just leash them up away so they can see and they can get the excitement and the feel for it. And then as they start to build up their excitement, we kind of tease them and be like, yeah, you like that, huh? Oh, what do you think? What do you think? And they just really, really get into it from there.
Yeah.
That's also kind of where we separate them. Some of our dogs don't have the drive or the interest, and we use those dogs to become our mice detection dogs. We keep our highest drive ones for the ratting.
Right.
I've actually developed 2 different lines depending upon what we need of our Patterdales. They're still within what we breed standards, but we have a heavier, thicker line that we use for when we're doing burrows work or if we're doing shrubbery work, if we're working on landscaping, because they're able to get through the brush and stuff better. And then we have another line that are smaller and narrower, and those are the ones that we do the ceiling work. We do raised floors and wall work with, because they're so light that they can get in and out of all the different places.
So this has gone from sort of like more. This is fascinating. The fact that you actually have started to breed dogs for specific urban environments is quite something. And so with that, I mean, we had another gentleman on a little while back who did bed bug detection and was moving into more rodent orientated detection as well. And one of the questions that came up was, of course, these dogs, are they pets? Are they tools? Are they owned by the company? What's your attachment to these animals? Because it sounds like you have a literal flotilla of these guys. You know, do you all first name basis, or how do you deal with that?
They're all first name basis. All of our dogs are very friendly. We don't have any aggressive dogs in our program. They are all company owned. We don't allow any other personal dogs in there. It all depends upon whether they say what we call our service center or the dogs go home with the handlers. It really all depends upon the personality of the dog. Some of the dogs can go from a pet dog, a family dog at the home. You take the leash down off the wall and game on. Other ones, when they work, they just want to go back to their kennel. They want to be left alone. And all they want to do is work. What we do is we use
I feel that, you know.
Yeah, don't you though? And that's what we say, and that's why we give them the break. Is they just want to work hard and they just want to go back to their kennel. So we use leather leashes on the dogs when they're not being used as working dogs, and we use paracord leashes when we're working because we can industrial steam the paracord, and that's a way that we control our filth and we do the sanitation for our programs. But the dogs will be watching us when we walk in. Are we walking towards the leather leashes or are we walking towards the paracord? The paracord, everybody starts to get excited, and then it's a matter of, okay, who are they walking towards to take out of their crate? If you walk by them, you'd think that they're being murdered. They're like, oh, come back. I'll do better than he will. I will do better than she will. And the funny thing about that, and I've gotten much better. In case you didn't know, there's a little bit of age difference between my wife and I. So she's helping me bring me into the new millennium. But as far as being that whole Me Too here in the United States, I'm doing much better on my sexism, but we prefer using females because they're much more efficient killers. There's no bravado.
Are we still talking about dogs here, or just in general, or?
I think we'll just say with female species. But I mean, the girls really are. The females are just, you don't get the bravado. You don't get any of the agitation. The girls just go in, they do their job, they keep it efficient. They save their energy for the job, not for going against each other, and then they're done. So we much prefer working females than males.
So, and forgive me for saying, is this, and other people will jump in on the comments, is this a thing with dogs, or is this simply a thing that you have experienced with the dogs that you have bred? Is this something we see across the entire breed, or is this simply just something that you have bred into your breed? Because it sounds like you have a fairly, well engaged breeding program here, where you are breeding for trait, where you are breeding for weight and size and appearance. Do you not think that you might have bred in this, particular facet of behavior?
And that definitely could be that's a very good point that we've discussed before, because I personally like feisty gals, okay? And I respond, whether it's Malinois, whether it's Patterdales, or whether it's my wife, I respond better to feistiness. Whether guys or gals, I think, that if you're feisty and you have spirit, you don't give up like weaker or more passive people do. I think you tend to push through. Mm-hmm. But I know for the Malinois, I mean, it's, the boys are stable. I prefer to work some of the boys when I'm working with them. So it very could be, either whether it's nurture or nature.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that's fascinating to hear. I'll ask one and then over to Sean, but and my one is actually not going to be from mine at all. It looks as though Stuart's kind of dropped you in the muck here, because Stuart Blair, who everyone remembers from previous podcasts, if you want to go back and have a re-listen to Stuart, but he's just asked, tell everyone about the White House job. Which has got both of you sitting bolt upright, glasses are on, so there's either a lot of pride here or there is an incredible story behind this.
Well, there's actually both, but thanks a lot, Stuart. Yeah. That's about putting us out there. Stuart is great. Stuart's we met him when he came over. He asked if he could join him with us, and he came over and he worked with us, and we've stayed in contact and friends with him over the years. We just saw him not too long ago when he came stateside. Stuart's been a great supporter. But so yeah, we worked in the White House for about a year and a half. We hadn't told anybody. We were recently there's a documentary that's coming out. It's called Rat City. It was released on the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, CBC, last year, and we're in the international version that's coming out this year. It's being released on streaming. So we were doing some interviews with them, and then they asked about the White House. They found out through the Freedom of Information Act that we had been in there. So we went into the White House. When ex-President Trump was talking about the United States stimulus package in the Rose Garden, a rat ran behind him during the news conference. All of the media was trying to take off their TVs, their cameras and the video cameras to get a picture of it, to do the two-legged versus four-legged analogy. He got very angry about it, so he insisted that the chief usher, the guy that is responsible for running the White House, do something about it. Through some contacts that we have, he reached out to us, and so we went in there. We were in there for a little bit more than a year, about a year and a half, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great honor. The people that are in there are dedicated to protecting and serving and running the White House. So there was no politics. They were there. They loved their job. They loved their country. They loved what they were doing, and passed that love on to us. The history and the things that they showed us were just absolutely wonderful. And then we were always very successful at what we did. So we didn't have to worry that, the home of our nation, when they're bringing guests and they're having important events going on there, would ever be disturbed by rats. And they never were the whole time that we were in there.
Just not the pitter-patter of little rat feet going across the roof, just the pitter-patter of little Patterdales in the ceiling voids and in the walls. Have you ever had a dog fail to come back? Where you've released it into the roof, because it happens a lot with ferrets. When you put a ferret down a hole, they will find something interesting, and you either have to dig them out or just wait for them to return. Have you ever had a Patterdale go rogue and just not come back?
Never. Nope. That is addressed during their training. That would be enough for a dog to fail out of our program. So we've never had that problem. We actually will put the dogs into the drop ceilings in like these huge office buildings in Washington, D.C., where we can't follow them. So what we do is we get a step ladder, we move the panel, we take our flashlight, we point it to the ceiling, and we just stand on the light with it shining on the ceiling, kind of like a beacon. And they'll just go out and do whatever they have to do. Sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes. They come back. And then we know our dog's behaviors well enough. If they come back and they're all like, okay, I'm done, I need to move forward, and they're all anxious, we know that they didn't find anything. If they come back kind of distraught, it's like, hey, it's cool, everything went great, then we know that they found something.
So you're leaving dead rats in buildings?
I was
do.
literally about to say that.
Yep. So sometimes, so what we do is if there's a rat or two that's up in the ceiling, the dogs will bring them back. If there's a whole bunch of them, they're not going to. They're too busy killing the rats.
Yeah.
We call them units removed. We don't call them rats killed for marketing purposes. So sometimes, yes, some of the units removed, unfortunately, do have to remain inside the wall. But, for the times it does happen, if you're taking care of the rats, you can mask the smell for a couple of weeks, and your problem is still taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you use to mask the smell, just out of interest? Or is that a closely guarded company secret?
No, we don't. So the only thing that we do is we do the ratting dog services. We don't do any kind of traditional pest control methods, but because we're so much in the industry, we do help. We'll still put out lavender bags or vent the areas and stuff like that, depending upon what the call may need for.
And we're certified pest control technicians too, so that helps when we're going through, like you're talking about, like how do we make sure that the rats don't come back, or how to make sure the clients are happy. We can tell them, hey, we are certified, so we can tell you this is how we're going to work the dogs. But on the flip side of that, this is what you need to do, or you need to tell your pest control company this is what they need to do to get this under control.
We've moved this into a lot of different areas as well to help our industry. So the reason I was saying we just saw Stuart not too long ago was there's a thing called the Rodent Academy that's put on by the different municipalities, the different big cities around the country. And I presented a whole bunch of different ones for that. Usually the main speaker for that is Dr. Bobby Corrigan. I know everybody in the industry has heard of Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
So we give back in a lot of different ways, and we teach people how we're just a tool. So we teach people how we can be a tool that can fit into their IPM program. We teach that we take away the need for rodenticide. We take away the need for backing out the rodenticide. I mean, there's other options, or you can lessen it as you go through. We, as a company and as professionals, we agree with rodenticide. We don't agree with the uncontrolled, unregulated, or sloppy application of rodenticide. We don't agree with the homeowners and the unqualified, what some people may call professionals, doing such a sloppy job. There's a need for rodenticide. It needs to be applied properly. It needs to be applied correctly, and it needs to be monitored. But regardless of how you look at it, it's needed.
And it's part of that integrated pest management strategy, isn't it? Or as I'm trying to steer people further and further away from IPM to IRM, I believe that integrated risk management is going to be the next hot topic, but that'll be a conversation for another time. So there we go. Sean, what's tickling your
with regards to the rodenticide, our dogs are trained not to eat rodenticide packets, not to eat bait blocks. They're trained how to avoid snap traps. If you see them, they'll actually take the side of their paw and they'll set off the snap traps. They know how to avoid glue boards. They'll jump right over them. And a lot of that's all part of their training. Again, a dog eating rodenticide would make them fail out of our program if we can't train them how to keep away from it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And there's especially seeing as in the US, you have. Sorry, John.
No, I was just going to say, for anybody who has never had any dealings with Patterdale Terriers, what you are saying is like a very, 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 very impressive feat. Because I've had them all. Well, I've had a few over the years, and they have their own ideas on life, don't they? I think that's the best way to describe it. They are.
Yeah, you have to make them want to do it. You can't make them do it. They have to be on board with what's going on, or there's no way that you're going to do otherwise with them. But we do, once we get their trust, we get their love.
Are you digging much? Are you digging burrows much with them or not in parks and things like that? Are you allowed to do that, or is it simply flushing and catching? We do a lot of burrows work because there's a lot of the what they call pocket parks. There's the campuses for the office buildings or their schools. So I'd say probably burrow work is probably 50% of our business. But are you digging those burrows when you get a mark off the dog? Is that what you're doing, getting the spade out and having a go for it, or is that too destructive for you, for where you're at? No, that's too much work for us. Right. Okay. Yeah, you know what I mean. That's too much work. I'm 62. My digging days are over. So
no.
we mostly, that's what we talk about, having the larger dogs. We'll let them do the burrows work, and then we actually have one of our dogs. He's a sweetie. He's just such a sweet dog. His name's Talon. He'll do all the digging, and then the dog that I work all the time, she really is a handful. She's such a bitch. She'll come in and she'll snarl and she'll chase him off when she knows she's just about to hit the rat. So they hear the squeaking of the rat, and they know that they're right on there. And she'll go and she'll show her teeth, and he'll just kind of back up, and then she'll finish the last. He'll do the 3 feet, and she'll do the 3 inches.
Right.
That sounds excellent. So, I mean, this is such a fascinating sort of like world, and I really am so impressed that you've managed to make it work. And I keep going back to this, taken a traditional entity and made it work in a modern environment. Someone asked earlier on, which is, what weight are your dogs? Just because if they're in suspended ceilings, you must be breeding a very small. There we go, Rupert. You must be breeding a very small breed. Or are your suspended ceilings made of tougher stuff than ours? Because ours are just a lot of the time polystyrene.
Yeah, I think that by fire code law, the ones in the United States are thicker than what is required over there. But our female, our Teckle she's about 5 pounds. Our females run about 11 to 14 pounds. We try to keep them at about 12 to 13. And our males run about 15 to sometimes 18. I don't like to get them larger than 18, even though we do have one that's at 20. But he's lean, he's long-legged. He's more of our runner. So when they take off down the alleyway, he's the one that'll go after the runners.
Mm-hmm.
So in real money, that's between 5 and 8 kilos, I think, for anyone listening. Not what these pound things are. But sorry, you're about to say, so your big male went running off down an alley, you say?
That's correct. So when they take off, and we're working around, and they're working in, let's say, a dumpster area, and one takes off, he's got these legs that he's like, bam, he's on it.
He can just cover a lot more ground faster. So warehouses and stuff like that too.
Okay, because that kind of brings us on, and I can only assume this is Hugh lurking in the background, because it's come from the Beauties and Beasties podcast page itself. How do you flush them from the burrows? So if you do find a hole, I mean, obviously when you find the bins and the wheelie bins and the rest of it, it's all jolly hockey sticks and pickaxe handles to the ready. But if you find a burrow in an urban environment and you can't dig it out, you can't dig it through, what's the protocol there? What do you do to get them out of the burrows, out of the fabric of the building?
We have several options that we do there. We have a carbon monoxide machine. And we don't use we use one that's called the Cheetah. It's a rodent control machine. We use that, and what we'll do is we can use that, and they can either die down in the burrows, or if they come out, then they're like a drunken sailor. They just come stumbling out, and the dogs grab them. But if we're too close to the building, what we use is we'll use a food grade mineral oil in a pesticide fogger. We'll flush that down in there. The heated up food grade mineral oil will bother the membranes of the rats, and they come out. Or we also use a portable air compressor. And what we'll do is we'll use that, and we'll stick the portable air compressor down in there, and we'll flush around. If there's a whole bunch of burrows, what we do is we just let the dogs find the burrows that they're associated at, and they'll go back and forth. There might be 20 burrows, but only say 5 of them are occupied. The dogs will identify which are occupied, the corresponding entrances and exit of the burrows, and they'll just go back and forth, and discombobulate the rat. They growl, they snarl, they bark, they dig. Sooner or later, the rats come flushing out. And it's really cool because we can tell the dogs know how to do this so well that when the rat is getting ready to come out, the dogs will just kind of drop down and wait, like almost like a raptor. They just hang there and wait till the rat comes out. They comes running out and just snatches them.
Wow, that's amazing.
I
mean,
have you ever done any ferreting with the ferrets and the dogs for rabbits or not?
No, I wish we tried to. In the United States, ferrets are outlawed in a lot of the places. They're against the law because of the damage they can do. Like you said, if they go down a hole and they're like, I'm not coming back, the damage that they can do to the wildlife, the birds and stuff like that. So you can't use them because otherwise we would have had ferrets. I think that they are amazing.
That's such an irony because the only
An American mink.
is the American mink. So we have an issue in the UK with the only mustelid that is hunted with great gusto is the American mink, and you're telling us that our European ferrets are not allowed over to America. That just seems like you're taking your stick home at that point. But no, fully understand
I
that.
think
They are land
if you ever come to the UK, find someone to take you out with the ferrets and a decent dog, because that's what you're describing there is very similar. I think you would thoroughly enjoy watching that, because they are next level on interpretation of what's going on. You'll get a lurcher that'll just literally stand in the middle of an earth, not moving. It'll walk over to a hole, stand and wait, and there's a bolt, it'll grab it, like 20 holes. It knows which one it's coming out of before it goes. It's phenomenal to watch. Phenomenal.
It's amazing.
You would thoroughly enjoy that, I think.
I mean, it just, the dogs are just like when we explain to people. Oh yeah, we'll go out with you, Stuart and Billy. You know that, but it's amazing to watch. It sounds complicated or far fetched until, Sean, you've worked with the dogs, until you see it and you actually, it's like, oh my God. We've found some things too with the rats that are like changing the way rodentologists are looking at the rat behavior, and some of the things we've seen where they send out a victim. We call it take one for the team. So like we'll have the rats trapped in a corner, say under a dumpster, and the dogs can't get to them. All of a sudden, almost always a young male or an old breeding female takes off, and they like squeak, or they don't run away, or they run and they stop and trying to draw us all off. At the beginning, all of us would be like rat, and with everybody and all the dogs would chase the one rat. You look back, and all the other ones were taking off the other way. And now we've seen it too many times. We know, that actually is, and we were told by the rodentologists and the entomologists, like, oh, that's anthropomorphic. You're assigning human feelings and emotions to the rats. The other one that we see that's fascinating is when we're doing a large removal and there's a lot of rats and they're all running for an access point, whether it's a burrow, especially an entry into a building. All the beta rats will stand to the side until the alpha rat goes through, even if it means they're going to get killed by the dogs.
They'll keep circling around.
They'll keep on circling around until that alpha rat has gone through, and then all the other ones. Then it's every man for himself from there. Our current record right now for removal of rats stands at 88 adults in 3 hours with 3 dogs. So it's, number wise, that's could be some numbers, and it's nothing like the agriculture where they get 500. But when you're talking about getting,
I think I saw Kieran's listening to this, so he will probably bounce up in a minute with some incredible number, because I've seen their rat out online.
I know Kieran. Yeah, you got, and his group is one of the ones that we were creeping on for the longest time. So Peter Herbert was another one. Peter, he didn't even know me, but I was like, oh, Peter's online. My wife would be like, all right, should I be worried about this? You know what I mean? But we've learned so much from all those guys. It was amazing.
So the question here stands is, you're talking about the Rat Academy. We're talking about rodentologists and coming up the rest of it. Are you guys planning? Are you going to capitalize on this fantastic idea that you have? You've done the White House, you've done National Geographic, which you touched on briefly earlier on. Is the next step a training academy? Just making sure that people can take, because I think that one of and this is a concern, surely, is the Me Too's, the people who look at what you do, they see the success that you have, they get themselves a Patterdale, and as you say, they fail, but they fail so spectacularly that they bring the entire process into disrepute. So is there plans of taking an academy on, teaching the next generation of traditional urban pest management? What's that? I've got to think of a better, acronym for that. The next generation of tuppies to come out and do this.
No, because we're not looking to commercialize that aspect of it. So what we do is we have people reach out to us all the time. What I do is I just throw some things out at them and say, when you get it done, come back to me. And 90% of the time, the people don't come back. So when you start looking into putting the work into it and having a better understanding of what's coming into it, then they're like, that's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. We're so busy that, we're not into commercialization of much more. I mean, we're completely blessed, but because of this, we have more money than we need. And I'm not saying that it's arrogance. It's a simple fact as much as anything else. So, we're at a point now where we are trying to give back to the community, both the community that we live in and the pest control industry as a community. It's just, I'm a very plain spoken kind of guy. You know what I mean? A lot of times people don't want to hear what has to be said.
But it's true, because the rats are wily, they're smart, they're able to adapt really well. And then you have the other aspect of dogs. They have to know dogs, especially terriers. Like you were saying earlier, Sean, that sometimes the Patterdales have a mind of their own. If they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. And then, as we were saying earlier, then you have the other side of the business. It's not, besides dogs and pests, then you have licensing, insurances, and stuff like that as well. So it's a lot to encompass into one training session, or to tell somebody, okay, this is what you have to do. Get ready.
Okay. Have you ever read a book called The Fell Terrier by Brian Plummer?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's
if anyone.
He turned out some great dogs and great books. I've read all of those. I'm a big reader, so I read all of those when we were going into this. And let's to another point on this is we've had so many meetings with government officials and government regulators, and they ask so many questions, and a lot of them are very valid, and they want the old trust but verify, but some of them are just so silly and ludicrous. But to be able to take the time and to be able to present and answer and go all the way through also scares a lot of people off on what's required of this. What we've done as part of our business applications, anytime we've gone into a new area, the first thing we do is I reach out to the regulators that are in that area. I explain to them who we are, what we're doing. I submit my credentials, such as our licensing and our insurance, our certifications, and I make sure that they feel good about what we're doing in their backyard, in their bailiwick, before anything even kicks off.
So,
do you know what it is? I don't know why I haven't thought of that before. I am now kicking the shit out of myself at you saying that.
Why? Explain your thought process there.
So if you're gonna, I don't know, we get a job where there's a rat in the back alley or whatever it is, or there's a particular, in Middlesbrough we have townhouses and they can have a real issue in the back alleys, and you think to yourself, oh, there's a, I don't know, an old toilet that's been stuffed with shit, and you go in, you throw it out, and the dog might kill 10, 13 rats or whatever. Why have we not contacted Middlesbrough Council and told them what we were doing, and sent through our insurance certificate and sent through our RAMs and blah, 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 to make them aware of what we were doing, but actually to make them aware of us as a business? Why have we not done that? Because then you become their go-to person, don't you?
And that's been a huge part of our success, because economies of scale, then you have somebody that's either, on your side or at the very least neutral. We have never yet, and we work with probably 15 or 20 large municipalities. We've never had one throw us out of their area. Because of this as well, I actually sit on a roundtable at Cornell University, which is a very prominent university here in the United States. That's made up of all the municipalities, and it's the Department of Health, Department of Regulations, Department of Licensing, Sanitation. It's made up of the big people, and I'm one of the few pest control people that are on that roundtable. And we had meetings and we talk about policies and discussions and stuff like that. So through doing it, Sean, what we're talking about here, we've been able to put a lot of guidance into the areas. We've been able to open up a lot of people's ideas to the way it should be as well, not as the way as some people may want to do it. We're very careful about sanitation. We're very careful about health control for our dogs, a lot of different issues. But what we've done too is we've done the old trust but verify. When I say our dogs are licensed, here are a copy of our license. Our dogs are immunized against leptospirosis. Here are immunization records. You know what I mean? Here's how we, like when we go out and we come back off of a job, our dogs are washed every single time, and all of our gear is industrial steam cleaned. So we have written procedures on doing that. So we submit those. And that way, the old, they can regulate, they can learn, and then we take them out and show them how we do it.
One of my favorite sayings is, the money is in the paperwork, not in the hard work.
Exactly. I mean, that's I haven't heard that one before, and I'm going to remember that one. That's a really good one.
That's
what they pay for, isn't it? No, but that's what they pay for, isn't it? They do. I keep saying this to people all the time. They're not really paying you to run your dogs in a back alley and kill rats, because they could probably ask any old Tom, Dick, and Harry to do that, couldn't they? What they're paying you for is to be a safe pair of hands, to have this in place, to have that in place, to do this, to do that, to know that they are bomb-proof. The money is in the paperwork, not in the hard work, isn't it?
And that's totally it. We have a very detailed inspection report. We have all of our insurance. It's all readily accessible. I mean, even like for the emergency veterinary care, all of our handlers have the 1-800 number of all the 24-hour veterinary centers on their phones. So they're just kind of the details and the attention to the paperwork, like you're saying, that's really made it very acceptable to a lot of both.
You've almost turned a very I don't want to say basic, but you've turned an almost sort of subtly, I can't think the right word to describe it, into something that's actually, you've turned something non-professional into something very professional, haven't you? That's what you've done. Yeah, well, I must say, I'm looking at it from our point of view. Alex was saying earlier, we don't have that happening in this country. Like, I wasn't going to say this, but I think it's, I've got cramp in my leg. We do have it in this country. I know lads who do it in town centres all the time. The problem is they don't have any paperwork. They don't have anything. They'll tip up Newcastle, Stowell Street, back at what we call Chinatown and all that. They'll go in 2 o'clock in the morning, smash and grab missions. They'll kill 50, 60 rats in the blink of an eye, and they're off before anyone's out. No one knows they've been in there. They just do it for the love of the job. It's very unprofessional. But what you've done is you've taken that and turned it into a very, very professional thing that people are now willing to engage with.
Our average rate is we don't go on site any less than $650 an hour, and we've got as high as $975 an hour, and we get it for us employing 7 people full time plus my wife and I. And those are I'm not a bullshitter. I mean, but you know what I mean. There's people on.
Yeah, you can say that in my off.
Yeah, but I mean,
my incredulous no was less disbelief and more, as I say, incredulity. That is a stunning sum of money.
The thing is, I'm going to piss up your back a little bit here. For anyone who hasn't had a Patterdale Terrier, in order to teach it to do what you do, to respect the pavement, to stop on command when it doesn't want to. That is a phenomenal achievement, because I've had them all my life, and I think I can get a tune out of a dog. I would not even want to attempt to do that. And when you say about people, this is all you've got to do, it sounds relatively simple. It might be if you've had a Cocker Spaniel or a Springer Spaniel. Fel Terriers are a whole different kettle of fish. Like, they are a whole different kettle of fish. You know, like, unless you've had one, they are dickheads at times, aren't they?
I've got a very extensive LinkedIn profile that's got a lot of our videos of us working and stuff like that, so you can see the way that we do it. You know, our dogs drop it when they're told to drop it. They leave it when they're told to leave it. I mean, we can direct our dogs with our chins. If our hands are busy, I'll be like, hey, the dog I work with, her name's Sansa. I'm like, hey, Sansa. And she'll just follow my chin. She knows what those commands are. Yeah. And like I said, we do it with 23 dogs, and we've had dogs that have been retired. So we're looking at having done this over the years with, 30 or 32 Patterdale Terriers. And that is the only breed that we use, with the exception of the Teckle. Now, the Teckle, I want to talk about her. Her name is Muffy. She's only about 5 pounds. She's a rabbit Teckle. Okay. My wife gives me crap because I always say she is adorable. You want to pick her up and you want to treat her like a little foo-foo dog because she's so cute and so adorable, but she's a beast. We put her into...
Have you ever come across a guy called Nick Valentine?
No.
Yeah, look him up. Look him up tonight.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, Nick Valentine, he has a pack of Teckles that he uses for rabbits. He has Petit Von Griffons, and he has a pack of Teckles in Ross-on-Wye. I picked one up off him, a dog that was called Zelly. But his are like switched on, grade A, 100% switched on. We love them. I can't tell you the stories about when I went to pick that dog up. It was that rum. It is wild. It is wild down there, and the dogs are grade A. Sorry, go on, tell us about Muffy, because that is right up my street. Come on.
Just exactly that. She just has a switch. She's just the sweetest little thing. You put her to work, and she'll just she sneaks through, and then I'll be like, Muffy, talk to me. and she'll start going, rah, 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 and she chases the rats out of wherever they're at and right into the Patterdales, and she just comes out. She thinks that she killed all 13 of them. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
She's taking a few out.
You know, she's taken like 5 or 6 out
Yeah.
over a couple of years we've been doing her, but she's a flushing dog. She's not an abatement dog, but she's just got a heart of a lion.
Yeah,
We love what we do in case you can't tell.
They're used in a different way over here. They're used for trailing shot deer, you know, scent wounding, and as you say, that bark on them, that hollow on them is a whole different. It's like a proper little hound, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. How the hell do you stop that from running off?
She's trained as well as the other dogs. I mean, all of our dogs work off leash. So when we put her up in a drop ceiling, we tell her to come back. She comes back. And
Tackles are notorious. If anyone's not dealt with a tackle before, they are notorious for getting the smell of something and disappearing, not for like 100 yards, for like 5, 6, 7, 8 mile non-stop straight line. They are a friggin' pig for it, aren't they? Yeah, they're effectively a little hound, aren't they? That's the best way to describe them. That's what they are, just a tiny little short-legged hound. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, all of our work is done in the urban environments. So, you know, we go into some of these cubicle farms where you have 600 cubicles in an office floor. You know what I mean? And we put her in the drop ceiling up above that, and she'll just go all around. And then when she finds an area of interest, she'll just start doing some yipping, and then we have to just go underneath. And we just say, "Hey, Muffy, talk to me. You'll hear." And then we'll just, get right underneath her, and we'll just go up to wherever she's at.
Like a little sonar ping under the floor.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. I mean, the little sonar ping is like, ping, baby, ping.
Have you, just out of interest, have you crossed anything into your Patterdales at all or not?
No, we don't. We support the breeding of the Patterdales. We make sure, and I know everybody says it's a type or it's a breed. I'm going to be very honest. There's been a hell of a lot better terrier than me that have come in before me.
It's a type. It's a type. I'm not having anything else said. It's a type.
Yeah, well, I don't know though.
It's a type. It's a type.
I feel it's become a breed, and I think it's becoming a breed. So we go off of the USA Patterdale breed standard. We stick within sizes. We stick within the conformation. We try to stay within the temperament. And we looked, but before we did the Patterdales, we looked at all the Jack Russells, the Wheatons. We looked at the Lakelands. I really like Lakelands. I love the Plumbers.
Couldn't find any.
I mean, we couldn't find them, and they didn't really fit everything that we need. And then when we found the Patterdales, we just absolutely fell in love with them. Now they're a breed of ours for life.
Yeah.
Oh, we love
them. The lads who are banging the Patterdales over here won't have you call it a Patterdale. They won't even
I know that.
They'll call it a red dog or a black dog, red bitch or a black bitch, chocolate dog, chocolate bitch. That's it. There's no they don't like. Yeah. If I said to any of my pals I've got a Patterdale, they would just stop speaking to us. What?
Well, and you guys can be brutal. When I first started up, you were nice, but you sure as hell didn't pull any punches. So I heard all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But now I'll be just as cocky as everybody else. I've earned my right to call them a breed. You know what I mean? Yeah. We have removed PLL from our line. We don't have any PLL, which is the eye problem that Patterdales are known for. We bred them out of our lines. We consistently get great feet, which is very important in the urban work because the Patterdales use their feet as much as they use their mouth to move things, trap rats, pull rats out of small spots. We've been able to breed like nice feet, nice muzzle. So there's, the dog part of it. We've really been proud of what we've been able to do as well.
That's the other thing as well. They go absolutely mental if they heard you referring to it as a dog. They don't like that either, do they? Yeah. It's not a dog, it's a terrier. It's not a dog, it's a terrier. You're not allowed to call it a dog. If you call it a dog, you would be frowned upon. It is a terrier, and it is a red bitch or a black bitch. It's as easy as that.
Yeah. Have these people held their breath for a little bit too long? I mean, what? Sorry.
No, it comes. So I don't think you have a lot of fox hunting over there, do you?
No.
Yeah, so like it comes from that sort of era in that a hound was seen as a separate thing altogether. A hound was a hound and it wasn't a dog, and a terrier was a terrier. It wasn't a dog. The dog is the term that they would give to something that you would keep as a pet. hounds and terriers were working creatures. So if you called it a dog, it was almost like saying I don't know anything about working terriers and hounds, and that's when it came on. And the type thing is because over here it's very much based on a lot of the terriers over here were previously kept for digging, so they used to say the dog should be judged by when it's not seen, not by when it is seen. So when they started giving it names, they didn't like it, and it was very much a type. So there was different villages in the lakes would have different types, you know, and they would all have their own little characteristics, and there's a whole art to line breeding and stuff like that. So they would refer to them on the colours because they didn't believe it made a difference what it was or how it was bred. It was simply, did it work? Did it work? You know, could have 3 eyes and 2 toes. They didn't care. Did it work? You know, that was what it came down to. So that's where the sort of stupidity, snobbery comes from. But that's what they call it. Yeah, red dog. What you got? Black dog. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Black dog.
Yeah, we call them over
dog,
here. We call them curs mostly. So you know, that dog don't work. It's a cur and it's got to go.
Yeah, cur is cur what we would call a mongrel, or is cur a rubbish dog, if that makes sense?
Pretty much the same thing. A lot of times when it's used intermingling here.
Yeah.
Interchangeable.
Cur is what I'd call someone that you threw off a ship, to be fair. You know, it's a nautical term. But there we go. It's interesting you call yours, you know, that's not a dog, that's a terrier. I've got both of mine. You've seen them sort of like Karen sticking their noses up. Both of mine are absolutely dogs. They can sniff out a rat at 50 yards, but they are not working dogs. So I don't think I'd call them curs or dogs. I've just got a pair of idiots. Very fuzzy, very sleepy idiots. But there we go. So very, very different world that I live in when it comes to dogs and pest management.
To be fair, I haven't done anything with dogs for a long time. For a long time. It'll be 10 years since I've done anything serious with dogs. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've even with our working dogs, our mice detection dogs are Patterdales. We use those. And instead of doing traditional detection work, and this is why a lot of people fail, we use the dogs to hunt mice in an urban setting. Mm-hmm. So we're not telling them to like go around here and sniff everything. We're letting them go say, hey, go find the mice. But
how do you train that?
It's a lot of work. And that's what we actually train our mice dogs not to alert on rats, and we train our rat dogs not to alert on mice. And then what we do is we do a certification every year. We have an independent scent detection association that we test for every year, and they test our ratting dogs on rats, and they put out a distractor of mice or mice evidence, and we certify our mice dogs, and they put out rats or rat evidence. And if the dog alerts on them or shows undue interest, then we fail our test. We take those test results, and it's part of the paperwork that we were talking about, and we go to our clients and we say, hey, you think you have a mice problem? Here's our mice dogs. You don't have to worry about our dog alerting or showing interest in the wall or the floor. And then it turns out to be a different rodent, which is totally different methods. They have different biological needs, different living styles. We know whether it's rats or mice. But what we do is we start with our dogs we go with the lower key Patterdales, but we're talking earlier about we use the higher drive or high drive for the rats. They don't care about the mice; they're beneath them. For the mice dogs, that's when the work comes in, and that becomes very similar of training them. Whether you're going to say whether they're going to be bed bugs or they're going to be drugs, it's just a matter of doing the scent detection, and then it's a matter of developing their confidence to work to do the hunting of that scent that's been imprinted on them.
And what just out of interest, how are you generating that scent on mice?
We have mice that we live mice. We use fecal. We use bedding. We get bedding and fecal off of different job sites that we do, because the fecal is going to have a slightly different odor depending upon the environment or the food that the mice have been eating.
This brings me on to something quite interesting, because scent is something that is fascinating to me as a biologist and a chemist. So there was some work done in the UK a little more than a little while back, called the Scent Mark program. It's run by a lady called Janet Hemingway or Jane Hurst, one of the two, but both of them came out of the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. And what they did over there is they realized that there were, in all rodent urine, a series of proteins and pheromones that worked in conjunction. More specifically, there was proteins shaped like barrels that were stuffed with pheromones. So where most animals, their pheromones are free within their urine, think timber wolves, think foxes, think dogs, when they urinate, their pheromones are released volatile into the environment, but they have to come back relatively frequently in order to top those pheromones up. You have to maintain your territory. With rats and mice and other animals like that, the pheromones are stuffed into these barrel-shaped proteins. So instead of it being like a Lynx air spray deodorant with people running at you from miles around, it becomes more like your scented candle. It's a slow burn, but it's not quite nearly as effective. Now, the thing with that is they actually isolated from these things a protein that they called Darcy, the Darcy protein. And the Darcy protein, when they smeared a little bit of this protein onto filter paper, male mice would go absolutely crazy. They would go batshit. They would hump a hole through the paper and out the other side if this protein was deposited on this bit of paper. But what they found, and this is the weird thing, is that there were regional accents to these proteins. The proteins, the receptors, and the pheromones, and the combination of the three, although they were coming from the same Mus domestica or Rattus norvegicus, they changed ever so slightly between regions, that different regions of mice would react differently to the same proteins and the same pheromones, but they had different receptors on the outside of them, and so basically were a different thing. So there was, when you say you collect samples from site because the animals act slightly different to the ones you might have in the labs, is that right?
That's exactly right.
So cool. Yeah.
There we go. It's regional dialects in piss.
Yep.
Yeah.
and that really is it. When we do burrows work, what we do is we take rats that have been killed by the dogs and we stuff them back down in the burrows and we collapse the burrows on them based on the hypothesis that the fear pheromone, being killed by a predator, has been released in their urine and it's on their body. But we find time after time that the rats come back to the burrows because they like to re-inhabit the same neighborhood, the same real estate. They get to the burrows down to where that rat is stuffed, and they turn around and they skedaddle. They don't come back. So that's a very successful part of our continuous service maintenance that we do, and it works like a charm.
That is interesting. I mean, try, just for example, and because I know with things like rabbits, it's fairly easy to expel the bladder of a rabbit with a thumb, after it's died. You just give the rat a squeeze. See if it's the whole rat that is the detractor to that situation, or if it's just the urine. So just give the bladder a bit of a squeeze, wring that thing out like a dirty sponge, and just see if it's the rat or if it is, as you say, the chemicals within that have dissolved within the urine within that terrifying last moments of life. And I'll be interested to hear how that works. Maybe.
I would. I'm game. She'll be like, yeah, but she's just right in there with me.
We'll have to remember to do that.
I mean, it just, we've tried so many different things. We're always trying different things and trying to learn more.
See what works.
It's fascinating, and there's no shortage. I mean, we're busier than we've ever been. It's just amazing what the rats are just so smart. They're so complicated. The other thing that we do too is we work our dogs on the Norway rats as well as the roof rats. And in some environments, we have a combination of the both of them, especially in the Boston area. And their behaviors, their escape mechanisms, and their flight methods when they're under attack are so different. It's really cool. But the way that we do it, a Norway rat, when it's running, it's like a quarter horse. It's short, it's chunky. A roof rat, when it takes off, it's sleek like a thoroughbred. It stretches out and it goes. Our dogs now have done enough of the
don't
two.
they?
I'm sorry, what?
They lope. Black rats.
Yes,
they have a much more loping run.
Yep, yeah. And our dogs now know within a couple of jumps of the rat whether it's a roof rat or whether it's a Norway. When the Norway is under attack, it zigzags back and forth and it uses things to hide into. The roof rat doesn't do that. The roof rat is running direct as possible for its escape route. So the dogs will go ready for the Norways. For the roof rats, they'll run right past the roof rat, just turn around, wheel around, and the roof rat just runs right into them. It's amazing to see.
So I have a hit theory on that behavior as well. Sorry, this is. I used to run a site called Church Farm for many, many years. Google it. It was hilarious and terrifying at the same time. But we had black rats and we had brown rats and we had house mice living in huge open area pens in this training center. So we had them all down there. So I got to watch them and see how they behaved. But with things like, so brown rats, let's start with brown rats, because they are ground dwelling, technically they live underground as well. They have a lot of hairs within their coat, which are, I'll call guard hairs, but it's not technically the right term for them. But basically, they have a very specific jelly capsule at the base of the hair that when it deforms, it's part of this sensory organ called the vibrissae system. So that's what leads to this thigmotaxic, this kinetic response in things like brown rats and house mice. And they will run alongside things where they can. So as you said, when they run away, they tend to run alongside things and they ping off the edges of things because they like to keep a contact with a wall or the rest of it. Things like roof rats, because they're living at height, they're running along branches, they're running along, beams, they're running along rigging. They're not running alongside anything anymore. So they've lost a lot of this, in my opinion, vibrissae system on the exterior, on the sides of their body. So they don't tend to aim for the edges of things anymore because they tend to run over the tops of things. So their flight path tends to be much more direct because they're not looking to run alongside anything anymore. They're just looking to run to a wall to go up and somewhere like that instead. So it's a weird bit of evolutionary biology there that's led to a very clear change in behavioral output, which is quite fascinating.
We do a lot of roof rat work in the big warehouses. So what we do is we will keep one dog down on the floor. We take one dog with a handler. We go up onto the forklift. We ride it and we go all the way up. And it's usually 40 feet up. So it's, usually 4 10-foot pallets, and then you've got the guards. What we do is we get up there, we take the dog and we toss the dog onto the pallets. And then we just slowly go alongside of the forklift while the dog just runs from pallet to pallet and just checks all the pallets, because that's where a lot of the roof rats live up there. But sometimes they'll just have to go across a beam and the dogs will just go right across the beam. And they're not on a harness, they're not on a leash, they're it scares the hell out of me, but you know what I mean? They're so sure-footed, you know what I mean? And I have to pretend that it doesn't bother me. But again, we've got video of the dogs doing this just time after time after time. And that's the warehouses are a big part of our business because they're tied into the deliveries of rats to the grocery stores, to the department stores, to the restaurants. Right. So what we are doing, we have kind of a collection, if you will, of clients that rely on each other. So we're throughout the food chain, if you will, at different points to make sure that, one people's problem does not become everybody's problem. We do a lot of warehouse and we do different applications like that with the dogs.
So I like that. Just one person's problem doesn't become everyone's problem. I think that is pest management in a nutshell, isn't it? Why have you let this go on so long? Well, I didn't want to bother anyone. Well, exactly. It's an irony.
How often do you not find?
You're bothering everyone.
How often do you not find, Scott?
I'm sorry, say that again.
How often do you not find?
Often. Especially a lot of times. The biggest thing that we find in apartment buildings is somebody sees a mouse and it's as big as a cat. It's got to be a rat. And we go there and it turns out to be mice. But we find that very.
Do you ever run rat dogs and mice dogs together at the same time just to double check and give them confirmation, or would it just be take a rat dog and that's it? Or how does that work?
We usually will do one dog or the other because they're two different services and we charge full service price for both of them. So it becomes very expensive to bring in a rat and a mice dog. You know what I mean? So normally they'll start. Well, they always want to start with a rat dog because even though mice are tougher to control and in many ways are much more a health hazard, everybody's terrified of the rats. So they always want to get rid of the rats first.
I mean, so to go back to what Sean was saying, go to an apartment block, you are, 13 stories up. Someone tells you that they've definitely got rats, and from experience, on the probability, the probability of scales, that if it's 13 stories up and nobody else has had a problem with this, it's unlikely to be a large population of rats living, right up in an apartment block. It's not out of the question, surely, but it's probability of scale says it's going to be mice, not rats, and it's going to be someone with an overzealous sense of perspective that's led to this. Do you still take the rat dogs and just turn up there and be like, not a rat, going to come back again tomorrow with another sort of like £600 call out, $600 call out with the mouse dog? Or, how do you approach those situations where you are going out to potential failure?
It depends on how much of an asshole they are. Sometimes we'll do everything that we can, and other times if they want to be a jerk about it, and you know what I mean, then
yeah.
So we're blessed in the fact that we're the only one that does what we do, and we're nationally and internationally known. So we can call our own shots, we can take on our own business, but we've also been blessed by the success that we can also help people. So about 5% of our business is community service. So a lot of times, especially on the low income housing, we do a lot of work for free. What we're trying to do is get these people peace of mind, because we can go in and we can tell. I mean, we know the difference between rat urine and mice urine, the smell of it. Right. We know the difference between a rat hole and a mouse hole, rat fecal, mice fecal, non-material rats or mice. So we don't even need to bring the dogs in. But a lot of times what we do is the dogs we'll go because we use the dogs to find where they're harboring and accessing. Well, it's not just killing them. So then we can find out. And a lot of times when you're doing a building that's built at the same time, it's a design flaw. So once you know that they're going underneath from the heater, underneath the floor to the kitchen, it's almost always going to be the same thing. So then we're able to say, well, hey, let's try this first, see how this works. If it works there, then you can apply it to the other parts of the building. One of the questions that I'm seeing on here is what's used for transport. We don't know what they call them. We know that you guys have them, but we use the Ford Transit Connect vans, the little small delivery vans. And those are what we use as our transportation. We like those because we have them closed in on the inside so we can steam clean them every night. So we can pretty much stack whatever dogs, our hockey sticks, our lights, our, carbon monoxide machine, pretty much anything you need, you can put into them. Right. And we've got enough of them that if we need to deploy 2 of them, we can. But like I said, then we can also clean them up real easy afterwards and just, wash them, clean them down, and steam them.
That's fascinating. I've just looked at the time. We've been talking for an hour and 52 minutes.
Wow.
Now, admittedly,
I've got one question I really want to ask.
Go for it.
Have you had any pushback from pest controllers who feel threatened by what you're doing?
All the time. It's very frequent, but what we do though is we're there as a tool to complement the pest control company, unless they're not doing their job. You know what I mean? We.
Sorry, that was a very interesting turn of phrase there. We are a tool to support the pest control company. Do you guys consider yourself a pest control company, or do you consider yourself something else?
Yeah, we are. Right. Yeah. So just a little bit about myself. I was on the board of directors and the vice president of Maryland State Pest Control Association. I was on the board of directors and president of the second biggest scent detection association in the United States, and went around and worked with pest control companies all over the country. We still do. We're not there removing them. We're working alongside them, or a lot of times we're doing a big reduction of numbers before they come in and they do their stuff. But we do unfortunately find a lot of our business when we're going direct is because the pest control company has not done their job, has not kept the numbers down or made the modifications, or assisted with the modifications such as sanitation or exclusion that needs us to come in and to get the problem under control.
Or it's the client's fault where it's sanitation or not doing things like they're supposed to do. As the pest control companies have said, we need you to do these things, and they don't do it.
And then we come in, we say
So you're the diplomat in the group, are you?
Yeah.
I'm no diplomat.
I love that. I love Angie just doing what was it?
She's the diplomat.
Yeah,
she's the one that
exactly.
does that.
Angie was
She's
like,
not
I'll just
trying
pick
to
this
say.
up so more people don't slag us off, and I'll point out it might not be the pest controllers as well.
Yeah.
Depends who's putting the bill.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll tell you,
exactly.
we could talk about this all day long too, though. But yeah, we're thrilled with what we've done. We've been able to successfully start an industry. We love dogs. I've been involved with dogs forever. We show dogs. We just actually had our Belgian Malinois was at the Westminster Dog Show in New York City. We do community service. We do therapy dogs. I for fun, I rehabilitate aggressive dogs. So, but to be able to take I know that's what she says too.
For fun, for fun.
But that's we're just very involved, and we're blessed that we can find a way to make a living and make such a difference, and to make money doing it. You know what I mean? We're actually moving into our next venture now. We're going to be using goats to clear commercial properties. So we just bought a farm, and then we're in the middle of building up a goat farm. So that'll be our next little foray.
That'll be something else sitting in the corner, is it? 37 goats sitting in the corner looking at you.
Oh, I think he's kidding around.
I think he's a comedian too.
Why bring this up when we are literally, and we've got to be 5 minutes from the end of the podcast, because it can't go beyond 2 hours, because Hugh will shout at Sean and I so loudly, we'll be like naughty school children. But no, I'm not touching it. I'm not doing it.
No, we can't. We'll get you back on. We'll definitely get you back on, because it's just one of them, isn't it? That can keep going.
Yeah, we also have another company that we do steam cleaning. We do commercial steam cleaning for the use of cleaning up after rodent infestations. It's extremely effective.
You're going to get them in trouble. They have 4 minutes.
And Lex, when you talk about the molecules and being the biology, I mean, that's a fascinating application.
And plus, a dozen Patterdales throwing 100 rats around probably leaves some sort of claret up the walls, floors, and ceiling, which is going to require cleaning up.
You'd be surprised. Most of our jobs, we get some where there's some issues, but most of them are actually pretty bloodless. The dogs are just trained to shake. Dogs are trained not to pull at each other. They don't rip apart the rats. They don't fight over the rats. They don't eat them. They just
dispose of them and go.
And Sean, I know you've had Patterdales. Stuart knows. Stuart's been out on these jobs with us. I mean, as crazy as these claims sound, I mean, we have to prove them all the time. We just worked with an international grocery store, and we took 5 of their food safety team members out from across the country. We got 53 rats in about 45 minutes, and showed them all these things that we were talking about. How the dogs don't run away, they don't bark at night, they don't fight. They have people that are walking their dogs because they just got home from work. They go right there in the background. Yeah. And I mean, it's just,
the dogs don't bark on cue.
Yeah, on cue.
2 hours on cue. Thank you, dog. That'll definitely be a Patterdale Terrier, won't it?
Guys, it's been such a pleasure to have you on, and the time has absolutely just gotten away from us, absolutely. But before you go, we have to ask you. We have a bit of a ritual. Everyone that comes on, every guest that comes on, we have a bit of a ritual. We ask them 3 questions. 3 questions. So with that, Sean, do you want to ask the first question?
Have you enjoyed your time on the podcast?
It's been outstanding.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We love what we do. We love hearing a different opinion and different thoughts and different processes. Different sayings and quotes and slogans. I mean, those are we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's perfect. And to be fair, we will absolutely be reaching out to you again, because it sounds as though we've only just scratched the surface of some of the fascinating stories that you guys have. But I'll ask my question, which is, give us a shameless plug. If the pest managers of the world were to wake up tomorrow and they were to buy one thing for you, or they were to do one thing on your behest, what would it be? What would your shameless plug be? What would you want everyone to do?
Clean up better. Improve the sanitation.
Don't be so dirty.
Don't be so dirty. I mean, that rats are going to keep us busy forever, because people are just so damn nasty.
Oh.
I agree.
No, society is so damn nasty, and people contribute to that.
No,
But no, we
people-
fully get what you mean. Yes.
yeah. Last
told you I'm
question, but I
plain
think I'm good. Yeah, I think I'm going to gazump you on this. So, who would you like to see on the podcast?
I personally would love to see Hawking. I would love to see.
Oh.
I would love to falconry. I would love to see biological applications. I would love to see another rat pack people on here. I would love to see somebody using the minks or the ferrets. I think that the more that we can professionally raise the exposure of biological, the better off everybody is.
If you want to look back, or you want to, anybody else wants to look back, we had Simon Whitehead on here. Now, Simon Whitehead is probably the #1 professional rabbit catcher in the country, and he does everything with ferrets and dogs. A very interesting guy, a good friend of mine. He's a great guy. So, have a shameless plug from us, Simon Whitehead on here.
We've had
Lovely,
Simon,
lovely bloke as well.
We've had dog detection guys on. We've had Sarah, who was a hawker falconer from up in Scotland on.
Billy.
We do have
Billy.
You've had Billy.
Who you know, Billy from Scotica. He's does loads of bird stuff with Stuart as well. Stuart's best.
Of course, we've had Stuart as well. So we've been fairly well represented by what I carry referring to as the traditional methods of pest management. I think the one that we haven't had, and is a proper ferreter on actually. Somebody who runs ferrets and long lines. But so if there's anyone out there that does that,
no, I tell you who I think would be a great guest if we could get him on would be Kieran Casper.
Kieran, step up to the plate, buddy. I'll hit you up on Facebook.
Well,
yep.
Hit him up and tell him. Hit him up and tell him he's wanted.
And I'll tell you, looking at Stewart's when he does the shooting, we would love to be able to do the shooting in DC. That's a good way to get killed by the Secret Service and the FBI to go running into the streets of DC with guns. But what a awesome application.
I don't think that's just America. I think that's the world over. If you run recklessly through streets in the middle of the night, shouting and hollering with guns, people tend to take a relatively dim view on that. I'm actually sort of like I'm hoping to get out to Pest World actually in October, so I may very well see you guys over there if you get to Pest World.
If you come over, hit us up, and what we'll do is we'll take you out ratting with us, so that way you can see the old Trust but Verify.
Oh, excellent. So there we go. Who fancies, everyone listen to this, a split Beauties and Beasties from across the pond? You can pass me a hockey stick and I will, with great British gusto, dispatch a rat at your behest.
And you have to take it's custom. You have to take a picture with what we catch.
Yeah. And if you hold it up. And if you don't like nasty language, don't listen in because I got the mouth of a sailor when I'm working.
Angie, just to let you know, in the UK, it's customary to blood people with the first thing they catch. Please don't do that.
No.
Slap them in the face with it.
Angie's hands were in National Geographic holding up 66 rats. And her grandmother started crying. She's like, my granddaughter went to college and she's out there, she's killing rats. No mention that we're in a National Geographic magazine. No mention of it whatsoever.
It's okay. My mom's Korean, and it doesn't quite translate over very well that I kill rats in Korean with dogs.
But National Geographic, so... That's it. Oh, guys. Thank you ever so much for coming on. There's some great love for you in the comments, and it's been an absolute eye-opener. And I think there's going to be folks listening back to this on Monday, which is when the majority of people set off for their week of work and they come and listen, are going to have a real shift in their thought processes, and I really hope my take home, my Jerry Springer moment of the day is going to be that you guys have turned something that was something on its head. You've taken something that everyone thought could only be done in a rural environment, it could only be done a certain way. You've taken an element of pest management that people had pigeonholed and you have modernized it in a really spectacular and a really, really incredible way, in both in terms of monetizing it, in legitimizing it, in bringing an authenticity to it. And so I don't know if I can set everyone some homework, my shameless plug. Have a think about what you do, be it, your physical, chemical, biological, radiological, how you dispatch and how you control rodents. Is there a way that we can be doing this better? Is there a way that we can be approaching these situations with a new mindset? Take that traditional and apply it to a more modern environment. So there we go. That would be my last thought of the day with that. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
You
It's
so
been
much,
wonderful.
guys.
And be safe, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Have a lovely night. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.